Hey guys, it's Sebastian here, and today I want to talk to you guys about grief. I think it's an important topic to refresh and look at, especially, when people, have people that they lose. A lot of feelings can come up, a lot of sadness, a lot of despair, a lot of challenges can, present themselves when we lose somebody. We all, I would say at some point in our life, talk about, or at least reflect in our own thoughts, death, right? We think about, conceptualize, what does death mean? And we all go through it. Humanity's always been going through it. Everything that essentially can live can die, because that's essentially what life is. It's some kind of, in some kind of like ability to like manifest energy outside of that which, God can control in some way. If to think about it, right? Like you're making inanimate structures have some sort of movement outside of the predictable future, right? There's like it's like the equivalent of like the mystery of what energy can do, by itself without some kind of like larger presence pushing it, right? So anyways, grief has a lot to do with the loss of somebody and the desire to want to be able to talk to them and to be able to see them. A great quote I saw about grief is love that wants to leave the body but is unable to. And so as much as you want to call somebody, you miss them, you want to talk to them, you want to see them, you want to experience life with them, then you know that, okay, they're not here anymore. This person's not available. This person's not a part of my life right now. And that little reminder sits with you and it eats at you, because, usually you would call this person, interact with them, but you're not able to do that. So this interaction now just sits with you. And just like we know with feelings that we don't necessarily let out, expose, try to understand, they will end up eating you up inside. They will end up poisoning you, anger, sadness, anxiety, all those emotions, when they're bottled up, will create some kind of pressure point. It's like having a dam. The dam isn't necessary. The dam is man-made inside of you to hold back these emotions that need to flow. So grief, again, is this feeling that I want to be able to communicate with somebody, but I can't, and it just sits with me. Now, some of the things that I recommend for patients and clients to help them understand grief is to just allow the existence and energy of that person to exist with you. I think that's very important for people to understand, is that we live in a very energy frequency type of world. Everything that you feel, what's an aftershock? You can't see it, but you can feel a bomb's aftershock, right? You can't see it, but you can feel the aftershock of, some kind of earthquake or something. You can feel the movement, right? You can even feel air moving across the way if someone's blowing it on you, right? So there's forces that we can experience that we don't necessarily have to understand how they operate to experience, which is the same with energy. And I believe that when people have a connection with, their energies around them, when they're very well balanced in their life, when they're emotionally and physically regulated, it allows them to access emotional parts that other people can then access, that are in the beyond world, as I would say, the eternal world, whatever you want to call it, the beyond conscious state. So in order for us to be able to receive these people and feel them, it's important for us to be emotionally and mentally balanced, to be able to have those kind of connections with the beyond. I help, I have a patient or a client that I've been working with who we talked about the loss of a loved one and how to teach children about the loss of loved ones. And so we went through the whole, concept of like feeling her energy, feeling her memory, like bringing her to life through the energy that we put out. Essentially, manifestation is this draw from a energy to a desire from the inside, and then magnified by the heart to give it that like oomph, right? It's like a Hot Wheel, where you put the Hot Wheel and then it has the little spinners and they shoot them off. That's like your heart. It's like you have a desire, then you shoot it off, but you actually have to give it a sense of direction. And so this is the actual mapping of how I'm going to take this raw energy and then boost it up, right? Amplify the heat of it, right? Get it ready, prepped up, and then boom, we're going to actually make this thing happen. And so when we may get a feeling from somebody that we know, a loved one, somebody that we may experience, we may feel their sensation here, and then we can actually do something about that sensation. Maybe I'm missing my cousin, or I'm missing a sibling, or I'm missing a loved one, someone that passed away, but I'm having their energy sit with me for a moment. And it's me being able to take that energy that I feel from them and do something valuable with that energy. Whether it's go visit their grave, or go watch a movie that we enjoyed, or listen to some music that we enjoyed, or go have a meal that they would have enjoyed with me. And just sit there and experience them with you. Experience their, conversational skills, their personality. You get to live the best version of this person. Really. What more do we want from people? To live the best version of us, the best version that they remember of us. I'm sure my grandpa, before he passed away, when he was all, tied up to all these wires and stuff, I'm pretty sure that's not the image he wanted us to have him as, right? Of course, he's going to want us to have us as the best image that he had in his life, right? And I do believe that naturally people will tend to do that by themselves. We tend to want to look at people in their best because we would want to look at ourselves in our best, which makes sense, right? So most of the things that humans do have a lot of common sense. Why? Because our feelings are mutually, shared amongst all human beings. That's why, feelings and body language are a universal language. We all experience those. That's why we all understand grief to some extent. We all understand these feelings because it doesn't require mental energy to understand how it feels. Because we've all felt before. So feelings is the universal language. Same thing with, like I said, grief, right? So we've all experienced some sort of grief. Now, there's different layers to grief. Grief isn't just for people that have died. It could also be for people that are still alive, right? Why do I say that? Well, you can experience grief from the loss of a relationship, the loss of a friendship, the loss of a coworkership, right? The loss of someone being close by. There's a lot of types of ways you can grieve a relationship. Again, a loss of a marriage is a grief of love. It's the grief that there was supposed to be this outcome. We were supposed to get somewhere. We were supposed to be something. And now I have to have a sense of grief for the ideas that never became. The moments that never were. The future that never was. The future that was being manifested but never completed. It's like a story that never ended. It was supposed to be this epic journey, but then it just didn't become that. And sometimes you have to grieve that. That was just not meant to be. And then, like I said, on paper, it sounds really awesome, right? It's like, oh man, this is going to be a great relationship. Everything's going to go well here. And then it just ends like that. And just didn't become what you thought it was meant to be. And that's, again, how grief can work, right? It's this desired feeling of something that was supposed to be, and now looks like it's not going to be. And now you just sit with the memory of that experience taking place, essentially. So that's really what grief comes down to. Now, how do we handle grief? Again, let's summarize. So it's being able to sit with your feelings. It's being able to, get grounded again, to allow these things to come out, allow the kid brain to be unregulated. I think one of the things that I see people do is they want to have all the right answers instead of understanding they need to experience the right feelings. It's not about having the right answers. It's about giving yourself permission to experience the right thing at the right time. And in this case, you're having a lot of feelings, a lot of emotional buildup, and that's where you need to be to process what you need for that moment. And allow that process to happen, allow that energy to take place, allow that flow to happen. And it's going to help you feel a lot of calmness, a good sense of relief. Just as much as there's waves in any water, at some point, once the energy isn't being pumped into the water anymore, the waves will calm down and regulate again. So just know that no matter how much ripples there are in the water right now, if you wait long enough, those ripples will calm down. Because remember, what is it, like 80% of us is water? Just give it enough time and the steam will cool off and you'll go back to being a liquid state. All right. I'll see you guys soon. Take it easy. Bye. Hey guys, it's Sebastian. I'm back with another video today. Today we're going to talk about narcissism and borderline personality disorder. And for those that don't know what narcissism and borderline personality disorder, well, you're a very lucky person today, because I don't know how you don't know about these diagnoses. And if you don't know about these diagnoses, you definitely have experienced somebody with one of these diagnoses. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of these diagnoses. So personality disorders essentially come down to this. It is a aftermath result of years of trauma and inconsistency from childhood. Narcissism tends to be more prevalent towards males. I think it's like 70%. And then BPD, borderline personality disorder, tends to be more prevalent towards females or women. Which, again, like, there are some reasons for the way I believe this works. So, a couple things. I don't believe that men and women are blank slates in the same way that they're just programmable for whatever. Nature is real. There are definitely some pre-programmed functions within men and women from a young age. There's pre-programming going on that we can't see. That doesn't mean that people aren't able to then mold their pre-programming into something else, or that their pre-programming doesn't include things that are abnormal for their gender, right? So you may have somebody, you may have a woman who's a big risk taker, who, finds herself being more of the go-getter. It's just not the average, just as much as there may be a man who is more passive and isn't the fun seeker, right? Like, it just happens. I mean, there's exceptions to every rule. But in general, you're going to see, nature versus nurture play out pretty well. I mean, again, exceptions to the rules is an exception, and that's all it will ever be. But for the most part, you're going to see people tend to fall in these categories. Men tend to be, again, narcissistic. Women tend to be borderline personality disorder. Now, I myself, as a clinician, I don't really like diagnosing these things. I don't find them helpful or effective. I don't even think that the need for these diagnoses is as necessary as some other providers may believe. I do believe that there are providers that weaponize these types of diagnoses. I believe that they use them to invalidate people's needs. I believe they use them to label people. And once patients or clients have been labeled with these diagnoses, there are clinicians that will use it as a tool to deny care or invalidate a perspective because of simply a diagnosis that they have a preconceived notion for. I, in my last couple of years, haven't found the need to diagnose borderline personality disorder or narcissism, and I've had lots of success with my client load and caseload and patients without having to diagnose this thing. I mean, I have people that have come in with a previous diagnosis of borderline and narcissism, but nothing that I believe that is currently being active, or that isn't something that can actually be worked on. Because again, let's break down the narcissism and borderline. So narcissism is this idea that this person has essentially cut off their emotional state. They're very calculated. They do only things based on what they think, and they pretty much have turned off their feelings. So essentially, they don't care. They literally don't physically care about other people's distress, as long as their bottom dollar, as long as their success is going to be perpetuated or continued. They really don't see anybody else as a problem. So essentially, these people are willing to benefit, whatever financially and whatever spiritually, whatever that looks like for them. They are going to benefit while other people do not, and they do not seem to care or put any kind of feelings towards that discrepancy or deficit within the relationship. They're okay with it. They don't feel bad for doing the things they're doing. If anything, they may even enjoy the things they're doing. They may even see it as they deserve it. If you're willing to just give in to them, why is that their fault? If these people are just willing to give away their money, willing to give away their time, energy, and attention, they're just, well, then maybe I deserve it. Maybe I deserve to be treated this way, since they seem to think that I'm better than them. And so it's this mentality where when you turn off the feelings, you become imbalanced. You lose your center point. And so I believe that narcissists are very calculated people with very little emotional regard. Okay? So higher on the calculation, less on the emotional regard, which is why they're lacking balance in their life. Again, they don't see the world for what it is. They see the world through their mental lens, right? So that's narcissism. Borderline personality disorder is the opposite effect of what narcissists are. So borderline is all feelings and very little thought. So the way a borderline personality disorder works, it's a very emotionally volatile type of diagnosis. That means that anytime that you say something that's counter to their belief system, they automatically start to get angry and upset. They're very controlling, but they control through emotions. Whereas narcissists control through lack of emotion, kind of like, I don't care, make me. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you can't force me, ha ha ha. Borderline's like, I'm going to lose my shit. I'm either going to hurt myself, I'm going to hurt you, I'm going to break things. It's like emotional warfare. So this person's going to act out physically, emotionally, violently. They're going to spread rumors. They're going to cause chaos. Their job is to cause chaos by physically actively activating chaos. Now they'll have times when they'll calm down and they'll be reasonable. And it's because of these reasonable states that people say, okay, maybe they do want to change. Maybe there's a possibility of something better here. But again, those are short-lived, and they can go back to that, what they call splitting. What I call splitting is when your feelings become so activated that you start acting out towards the people around you. So it's more like you just reach that point where there's no return, right? It's like the event horizon. So once Hulk turns on, you ain't going back. Feelings are always going to go further than thought. Once feelings activated, they have to go through a process, and then thought can return. But again, these people are much more guided towards their feelings. I would say, again, BPD versus narcissism, they're both lacking a little bit of each other. Narcissism is lacking some sense of feelings, so that would help them stabilize if they were more in touch with their emotional state. And then borderline is lacking thoughts. So if they were more in touch with their thoughts, they wouldn't react and be as aggressive as they are. And so really both are the opposites of the coins. Now, both parties tend to be very draining for the average person because you can't have either a reasonable conversation with them or feel like they understand humanity. So like narcissists, you feel like they're never going to connect on an emotional state, and so they pigeonhole themselves. And then borderline will pigeonhole themselves in a logical state where they'll just be more feelings than logic. And so then they will end up draining you. The person that's narcissistic will end up causing you to start being more depressed and volatile and anxious and stuff. As far as you feel like they don't care about your feelings, so your feelings don't matter. So that's depressing. And then for the borderline, your thoughts don't matter. So you'll try to explain things and they don't care. They're just going to respond and be volatile. So one doesn't care about thoughts and one doesn't care about feelings. And technically, both of them probably don't care about either one, to be real. But more geared towards that. Now, what do these people need? They need somebody that's very balanced. The only way to fight a narcissist and a borderline is to have pure confidence, which is that middle state, right? That grounded state, that enlightenment state. They hate people that are enlightened because that's something they can't achieve. So they'll try to bring you into their chaos, but as long as you stay grounded in your reality, they can't beat you in their chaos. So just remember, borderline personality disorder and narcissism, both opposites of the same coin. One's a feeler and not a thinker, and one's a thinker without being a feeler. And if you learn how to balance, you can be able to withstand either one of their crises. So I'll see you guys on the next one. Hopefully this information helps you, and watch out for those energy vampires. It can only suck you out if you let them. Stay balanced, stay true, stay in your nirvana state, and everything will work out. Later. Hey guys, it's Sebastian back with another video, and today I'm going to talk about manifesting. It's a topic that I feel I've learned a lot about in the last year and a half or so. I think it's important to teach people really what manifesting is. there are certain topics that I've realized, because of the way people just kind of use hot button words, they'll just kind of use them without really understanding them. And so for me, I want to explain how this process works out, how to encourage yourself to get in this mode, why it can benefit you, and really like how to develop yourself to get to the next level in your life. It's a tool that I use with my clients and my patients, and it helps them understand the process of how to manifest the life they'd like to have, the ideal life they'd like to develop. It's kind of a way to develop goals in the 3D physical world. It's a way to, build the life that you want to have. People used to like build their ideal life, their ideal home. And in a way, you're going to do that by manifesting it into reality. Now, one of the ways I see manifestation thought as is like, you're just going to think and it's going to come true, right? That's like wishing. And manifesting isn't wishing. Manifesting is the process of focus with the use of your spirit, your energy. And so really what I believe it comes down to is your time, energy, and attention, or your time, energy, and consciousness. And that to me equals your spirit, your like focus, your desire, focus, your energy, whatever you want to call it. Like when you have a lot of willpower, whatever you want to call it, right? I believe that's how you measure it. Now, when you have willpower, you can use this willpower to then focus on something that you want to complete and then push your energy into making that thing come true by manifesting it into reality through the use of your own spirit energy, right? Your own willpower. So again, it's your power, right? And it's how much you can sit there and focus and do a task to complete it. And when you are able to continue to put in willpower into a task over time, that task will get completed. You will be able to finish whatever you put into, right? And so really that's how spirit works. And I'll explain the core mechanisms and kind of how they play out throughout your life. So the first mechanism is you want to talk about your feelings. You just got to get a feeling, like a gut reaction to something. Children are naturally gut reactors. You're born with your stomach, a mouth, stomach, and butt. That's just how we start. And so that provides you with this kind of like guidance already, just from your gut, right? Because again, one's the intake, one's the outtake, and one's the center base. So your stomach is your center base. And so your stomach's been guiding you since you were in development, essentially, right? So it's the guiding brain when you're little. And so that thing is a desire, and it can kind of like give you like, I want to go here, I want to do this, it gives you desires. It gives you desires for stimulation. You're seeking a type of stimulation. We say this a lot in child development where we're like, kids are seeking a stimulation when they're bored, when they're acting out. When they're throwing stuff, it's because they feel like throwing. And if you tell them don't throw, they still want to throw. It's the mechanism of I want to throw that they're looking for. And so when you understand that, then you can say, okay, so they're just releasing a pressure valve, essentially. And you can use that to help with the process. So feelings is the first place where we start when it comes to things I want to manifest into reality. So I want to feel something that I want to achieve. And so that gives me that initial like sense of compass or direction. The second part is your heart. And your heart is your like willpower, right? And so you have a lot of willpower at deciding what you want. So when kids want something, they can spend hours doing it. My daughter will spend hours, coloring, or my son will spend hours playing Luigi's Mansion. So they each have like activities that they'll literally spend hours doing. And that's just how they operate, right? So yeah, I have an understanding that as kids get older, especially from 6 to 11, they can spend hours doing something they truly enjoy. Whatever their heart desires, they will sit there and keep doing it. And that's also when kids start to develop wishes and dreams and desires, and they start kind of having wants. I want to go here. I want to try this. I want to visit this. I want to, be involved in this. And so this is the time when kids really get into who they are. So again, they have the will to do things. You can even get them to earn things that they want, things that they desire. So you'd be like, okay, you want to go to the store to get a candy, you got to clean your room, you got to, put some shoes on, wash your hands, and then we'll go. Something like that, get a jacket on. And then if you keep it consistent, they'll just be able to do it on their own. But that's how essentially, kids use their desire, right? And then the last part of development, which is 12 to 24, is your adult brain. Now, what I see about the adult brain is it really takes, as you get older, to really open up your mind to different perspectives, because when people are younger, they're really more about being guided and told what to do. They do start seeing, some aspects of life. They'll start seeing social dynamics and standards. They'll start understanding, what the importance of planning for the future. But really, their ability to open up that mind's eye doesn't come until about 20. And what the mind's eye really is that it's like an eye that you open up in your mind, and it helps you see all the different things that are possible around you. And so it's like the Lego movie, where they can just take a bunch of random Legos and build something out of it. It's like the ability to use critical thinking, the ability to analyze an environment and then create solutions that weren't seen before, right? I do this all the time when it comes to helping patients and clients with a project where they're like, I don't know what to do here. And so we'll brainstorm, and I'll give them some ideas hey, what about this, this, and this? And they're like, yeah, that'll work. And it's just because as my mind's more expanded, right, I've done a lot of different things in my life, traveled, experienced, unique situations, explore different, avenues. And I believe the more that you understand the world that you live in, the more creative that you become, because you've literally lived different situations. And I believe the more people that you understand and know, the more lives that you've lived, because when you get to know people, they can share their knowledge with you. They can share their experience with you. It's like having human Googles, It's like having human Google links. You don't need Google when you know somebody who does it for a living, because then they can kind of explain it to you. So for me, it's like the more people that you meet, the more life experience that you have, the more your third eye will open up and allow you to see all possibilities, because you have an open perspective. So the more open it is, the more possibilities, the more creative that one can be. Because creativity is only limited, as they say, to your imagination. And so if you can imagine a lot more because you have a lot more experience in the world, then what you can create is going to be vastly more, expanded than somebody that has limited life experience. And so when you open up that third eye, you've now become like this energy vessel where you get a task or a desire, and then you unlock the passion for it, and then you use your mind to literally make that thing come true. So if you have egg ingredients or ingredients to make a cake, it's not a cake until you literally manifest it and do some alchemy and make it into a cake. And if at any point you focus on anything else, that cake can't continue to be made. So the only way to make that cake is to sit there and put your spirit, right, your energy, your abilities into this cake until it gets manifested into a cake. So manifestation really comes down to those three elements, okay? It's your feelings, so you get that desire. You get your spirit here, your energy, yeah, let's go. And then here it's the thinker, how am I going to make it happen? How am I going to make this? So you have to think of how do I want my room to look before you make the room. And then you start manifesting the room by putting energy into that project. Remember, a project cannot get done unless you put the energy into it to make it happen. Alright guys, take it easy. I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, it's Sebastian back with another video. And today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about something I've learned recently, is specifically how to get into a space in your life where the people around you aren't going to influence you in a negative way, where you really can start to hone in your skills and abilities to develop yourself in such a consistent way that really you're always kind of living in the moment for the moment and enjoying life more. Now, let me explain a couple things. I've in the more recent months become more spiritually open, spiritually awakened, and seen some things and some processes really related to mental health and spirituality, and really seeing how these things play out, the commonalities, the sameness in topics and discussions, but different labels. So essentially, when you combine spirituality and psychology, a lot of interesting things will come out of this, and it allows like the truth to be revealed, to just by being open-minded to these things. And so the more I open my mind up to what I needed for myself and my own development, the more that the truth will reveal itself. And I'm going to explain a little bit about how that's going to work today. So specifically, there has been this idea that I've been working on where there's like this chaotic energy in the world and there's like truth, right? And so it's really interesting. So if you want to look at, there's people that have balance in their life and there's people that are imbalanced. Now, people that are balanced are people that prefer the truth. They prefer to stay with the honesty of the world and just live authentic. They allow life to just kind of go with the flow. Like they can stay balanced because they're letting life guide them. They're letting life take them. And they're enjoying the ride, right? So it's like you're riding a bike or you're riding a wave in a way, and you're just kind of enjoying, the water. You're like on a water slide and you're just kind of going with the flow, right? Because you can't go backwards. You can only keep going down the water slide. So you can try to go faster, but then again, like life always is going to catch up to you. So you can only go that fast for so long before you're going to fall. And so if you go with the flow of life and really enjoy life to the fullest as it comes to you, you're going to have a lot more enjoyable ride all the way down, down existence essentially. And so when I think about how unbalanced people can be, they tend to be overthinkers. They tend to be people that don't like to think too much. They tend to be people who are overly emotional, or people that have no feelings at all. Now, all of these issues will cause you to feel drained. And it's funny to me because we talk about this idea of like energy vampires, right? And really, if you want to like look at the core of like what a vampire is someone that prefers the dark, and it's somebody that needs people to be alive and be more like a parasite than someone that's dead. And so I think that right there is very interesting. I also think it's interesting that the vampires initially were considered demons. Like they are a type of demon, right? And if we think about it, so demons prefer the dark and they suck people's energy out. Okay, like their life, but they can't kill them because again, they can't drain them. They also don't want everybody to be a vampire because they need souls to feed off of. So if everybody's cold, then there's nobody to feed off of. So they need to like have enough humans, like people, so that they can keep feeding off everybody. Because they got to be healthy so they can get that good blood, right? Well, change blood to spirit energy. Okay? Your soul, right? Let's just say instead of there's blood vampires, let's say there's energy vampires. There's some demons out there, and these people love sucking out your soul. And to me, your soul is your time, energy, and consciousness, time, energy, and attention. And so that willpower that you talk about, spirit, right? Whatever we want to call it, that ability to get up in the morning and keep going, right? The human spirit, whatever. So that can be drained. And that's why people can have broken spirits. That's also why when people drink alcohol, they say it gives you spirit, right? Because it lets out the feeling and kind of turns down the volume in the mind. And so people that are really high stress act more like loosey-goosey. And so it gets you to that balanced state where you're, still feeling and thinking, but not too much of either. But you can do this naturally. And so when you get to a place where you're balanced in your stomach and your feelings, and you're balanced in your mind, then you can have balance in your heart or your spirit. And so you want to be in a good state of the three alignments right here. And when you have these three aligned, it really helps your spirit start to grow. Because again, you can listen to your gut for that first sense of direction. Then you open up your heart and give yourself willpower, and then use your mind to make it happen, right? And then when you do that, you're fulfilling your purpose, right? You're living life authentically. You're living life in the moment. It's when those four horsemen start to suck out your soul that you start losing that confidence in yourself. You start feeling drained. You start feeling tired. You start feeling cold. They start to make you feel lonely. And so everything that like a vampire would do, a demon would do, right? It's just like energy versus blood, okay? They just suck out your energy, okay? And the same thing, they want to drain you for that energy. But the only way they can do that is when you focus on them and you give them that. So just like in my other video about manifesting, when that third eye is focused on what you want, you don't get drained. But when you focus on other people, they can drain you of your energy, and it literally sucks you down to your core so that you have no like motivation. Well, you can change that, right? And I call it God mode. It sounds funny because you know, of the title, but at the same time, I like to think of like Minecraft or some of these games that exist, and the way that you can go into this mode, like example creative mode or whatever, right? And so I call God mode going into like focusing on the moment with your gut, like letting your gut guide you, like let's go here, let's go do this, like, and then using your mind to just make it happen. When you get so focused on just being in your center, being in the moment and balance, and just kind of like literally going with the flow, like let's go here, let's get things done, you know? It's like, what do I gotta get done today? This, all right, cool. This, okay, cool, let's go. This, okay, I want to do this today. Yep, let's do that. I can do that tomorrow. And you're just going with the flow of life. When you focus on that flow state, nobody can touch you as far as like you being the problem, because you're living authentically to a balanced state. You're not overthinking. You're not overfeeling. You also are thinking about things, and you're also feeling some things. So you're right there in the balance, in the sweet spot where you want to be. Level-headed, right? Level on both ends. Level-headed. Level-headed, okay? So when you're level-headed, then you can open up your possibilities to like different things, and you get more out of your life that way. And you don't get lost in the imbalance or the chaos, or what you could call demonic energy. And so you can have the chaotic or demonic whatever energy vampire people around you who are sucking you dry. But here's the thing, as long as you focus on that higher purpose, like what am I doing with my life? Like where's life taking me? As long as you focus on that, nothing else can touch you. Nothing else can bring you down. Like you are so focused on like you living authentic to what your existence is, that it literally helps you like push ahead of anybody else. It helps you push ahead. And so, because at the end of the day, it's not about anybody else. It's just about you and living the moment to the fullest that you can. And nobody can take that from you. And what that does is it creates an aura around you where people just really appreciate who you are as a human being. And then anybody that's willing to talk poorly about you or talk down about you automatically shows that they're not a good person. Because why would anybody talk about somebody that just lives authentic to who they are? Not trying to impress people, but not trying to put people down. Just being a good person and being authentic. And just being a loving person, really. Like, when you love yourself, it's easy to love other people. It's easy to see the best in them instead of the worst. But you got to find that love in yourself, too. Because if you don't, you turn to that dark. You turn to that chaos. And then you have to admit to your faults in order to come back to the light. So anyways, I just want to tell you guys, God mode, you know, focus on the moment, be balanced, and then let that gut guide you and make it happen. And life will just work out in your favor, okay? Because this thing knows what's up. Your gut knows. It knows when you be bad, knows when you be good, so listen up. Trust your gut. All right, guys, take it easy. Next. Hey guys, it's Sebastian back with another video, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about different leadership styles I think are important to recognize, especially because knowing what an effective leader is going to get you to where your destination is that you want to be, right? So there are there's people that like to lead and they have that, like, you know, they're like good leaders as far as like just the way they kind of interact with people. They have leadership skills. And then you have people that are managers, right? Those are like wardens. So you have somebody that's like inspiring, you know, a movement, and you have people that are enforcing a belief system. And those are two different things, right? I like to think of it like a cult leader versus like a spiritual guide, right? So cult leader is very much, you have to do it this way, that way. There's rules to follow. There's enforcement to be done. There's punishments. A leader is more of a guidance, more of like, hey, we're all trying to achieve something greater, right? It's like more of like an individualistic kind of perspective, and we're all pushing towards some kind of greater purpose, some kind of like positivity. And these kind of roles really play out from childhood up until adulthood. I mean, from being the leader of a group of friends to being the leader of a troop to being a manager of a project, from many ages, right? I mean, from young to older. Now, there are some differences in how these things play out. And, you know, there are yin and yangs. There's effectiveness across the board, right? But obviously, at the end of the day, you know, one of them leads to a healthy outcome, and one of them is going to lead to a break in the system eventually, right? One is shrouded in, you know, kind of like a negative atmosphere, and one is shrouded in a positive collective for future change, right? One constantly is reminding you of how you've messed up and you haven't attained as much, while the other one is only seeing your current state as the potential of what you can be later. So I think that's a big difference, right? People that tend to be, you know, dictators, managers, people that are set rules, wardens, the same kind of thing. These people see you as your current self, as this is what you should have been, like your potential, right? You should have, like, if you don't do better than you are, it's your fault, and everything you've led up to is like, you're the reason why. So that's why managers are like, well, you didn't work on this report, you didn't do this thing, you didn't. And so they're constantly focusing on how to, you know, manage the little deficits that you have, and why you haven't achieved this excellent goal, why you've been holding back, why you're not doing well, right? And so again, they kind of talk to you in a way where it's like, you're not good enough. Like, you need to excel. Your productivity is down. This stuff is not good. This stuff. And so automatically you're stuck talking and reflecting on the past and what you did wrong. When you have a leader, they're constantly focusing on the future and seeing where you're at now and the potential of where you're going to be if you keep working towards it, right? So there's definitely a shift in energy and a shift in perspective. I do believe one of the key differences is people that are leaders, they have a vision for what they want. It's a vision that they're building towards constantly, and it's like a constant adjustment, right? So they're like, ooh, you know what, like, this happened to us, but we're still going to move forward, and this is how we're going to achieve it. And so regardless of like what the pushback is, they always tend to find a way to, like, you know, overcome, you know, try to, like, you know, find that solution in the darkness, right? So they keep pushing themselves to really, like, engage in an outcome that they're satisfied with creating, right? They want to create something that's grander than themselves, and they keep pushing it. A manager is going to keep dogging you out for your past and not living up to an expectation that they set for you. Right? One of them isn't setting an expectation, they're setting up a possibility, right? They're allowing you to launch into a future development. Now, at the end of the day, I get both of them want better for you, right? But one of them has a way of inspiring you, and one of them has a way of keeping you, like, you know, keeping you consistent, right? One of them is beating you with a stick while the other one's pointing in a direction saying, go over there, right? One of them is dragging you along, and one of them is watching you succeed as much as you can. Now, why is it important to know these things? Well, when you're in a position of power, or you're in a dynamic where there's somebody in a position of power over you, it's important to know really what's going on here and how it affects you, right? If you have someone that's micromanaging you, right, that's constantly picking at you, that's constantly looking for flaws, you already do this naturally to yourself. You don't need somebody to sit there and dog you out, especially if you're already someone that does this. Obviously, if you're having a hard time self-evaluating and you keep making mistakes and you need that extra support, we're obviously not talking about that, right? We're talking about people that walk on eggshells, going to work knowing that this work environment is going to be toxic for them. It's going to be draining for them. It's going to be putting them down, right? Because that manager, right, is only focused on the past as a reflection of what your current is. They don't see your past as a reflection for what your potential could be. For example, if you've seen someone grow, change, adapt, especially as they've grown to be more consistent and positive, that history can now be used to elevate, to perpetuate, to push forward their future. So all this past information, as much as it got to here, now, boom, we can only see that the sky's the limit. The future is going to be there as long as they keep pushing forward and using that energy in them, right? But the only way to get that energy is, again, to be in a work environment where you're feeling appreciated. You're feeling that your work ethic matters, that your voice matters, that the things that you do matter. Especially when I think a big difference is when you have a boss that sees you as your own person and like you have this potential to create your own business and be your own, and like literally like sustain yourself, develop self. When they see that potential in you, they encourage you to keep wanting to be yourself. They're able to accept those hard days where you're like, man, I know you're not going to be here next year, but I'm going to enjoy this year with you. And those people end up becoming lifelong partners, right? Whether it's business, whether it's just knowing acquaintances, whether it's just being somebody well-known in the community. So these people continue to be really positive role models for the people in their lives, right? They tend to be the people that you hold inspiration with during hard times, right? Because of the things they told you. Versus a manager who the second you leave, you're done. I mean, the only reason you really think about them is somebody else reminds you of something they did or they used to do, which, affects your system. And then that little bit of a trigger is like, oh my God, they're back in my life in that moment. And I hate them. I want to think about them. Again, because those people didn't inspire you to be the best version of yourselves. Those people only saw you as much as you were worth to them in that current moment. Almost like an object, right? What value do you have for me right now? And that's the problem with the manager versus the leader. A manager just sees your worth as how much energy you can provide them, how much of your soul you can provide them, your worth and value. A leader, again, doesn't see you as your full potential. They see you as your current potential with a full potential if continue to be provided guidance. One will provide guidance, one will provide instruction. One tells you what you're doing wrong, and one's going to say, hey, look, there are no right or wrong answers, but at the end of the day, it's what you want to do with it. And again, a manager is going to sit there and pick apart everything you've done wrong to really highlight all the deficits you have. A leader is going to remind you of the things that you need to work on, but at the same time, inspire you to want to be that better person. A manager comes to work like a warden, walking around making sure everyone does their job. A leader is actively inspiring everybody while they're doing the job with them. It's like, again, there are coaches that sit there and blow a whistle all day, and there's coaches that are running with the people. And really, how do you want to be presented? We know one of them leads to innovation and one of them leads to stagnation. Which one do you want to be a part of? Do you want to be the people that inspire those to be the greatest version of themselves, and you be the catalyst for that change, you be the catalyst for that future? Or do you want to be the person that limits people, that holds people back, that keeps them from achieving their full potential because you don't know how to inspire those around you because you lack that inspiration yourself? So just something to think about, right? Do you want to be a manager? Do you want to be a leader? And really looking at what the differences are. A manager is like a dictator. A leader is like a movement, right? It's like someone that's been elected as a movement leader. I would say king, but because kings are supposed to be elected by some higher purpose. I don't like to use king too much because it starts sounding a dictator. But I like to think of like kings like King Arthur, right? He was kind of elected by the sword to be the leader of the people, and he was just the right person at the right time in the right place, right? So anyways, thanks guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Later. Hey guys, it's Sebastian back with another video, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about probability. Ooh. I think it's important to know that probability is the single-handed reason why we exist in this country, in this nation, in this world, in this universe. The reason why existence is possible is because probability is possible. Now, let me explain a little more. Look, in a perfect simulation that we are in now, probability is possible. When human beings try to replicate probability, it is literally impossible. Why? Because we have to put in a formula to create probability, right? And in creating a formula, that takes away from what is organic, authentic probability. because everything is already determined by the way the formulas are created. So even with probability, there's still a chance that it's not true probability, because there's still some kind of numeric system that's being implemented into this probability taking place. So probability, the only person, creature, entity, thing that has probability is the universe, right? Now, how does this work? They have shown examples where they can prove that light takes chances, okay? That there's a spectrum, literally, of options that are available for this thing to pick from, and it will pick one. It will pick an option, okay? Now, why is that significant? The idea of yin and yang is way deeper than people really understand. This idea of one thing and something else and something in between them that makes them different. That is literally the building blocks to existence. In order for an existence to happen, okay, existence to exist, you have to have some degree of probability. You have to have some degree of sameness and differentness. Now, let me explain. So, in atoms, okay, we have protons, we have electrons, and we have neutrons, okay? So, protons, electrons, and something in the middle to mix them up, right? So, there you're already having some kind of system. And even if you get further along the system, there's even more, differences. A very binary way of seeing this is take a 0 and a 1. If you only had a 0, you cannot create probability or chance or change or nothing. It's all the same. But the second you add a 0, a space in between them, and a 1, now you have two different things, and now you can create. You need two opposing things to create. One is balance and one is chaos. And when you align them very well together, you start to get some kind of patterns. You start to be able to create, because 0 and 1s are what's necessary to create. But again, you need a 0 and you need a 1, which those are different. And then you need something that divides them to make them different, some kind of other entity, right? And so you have protons, electrons, and then you have what? Space, right? You have neutrons, you have whatever to create that difference. And now, because you could create difference, now you can start to create whatever, right? And so there's this plan, this idea that the way to create everything, right, is you need to have difference with consistency. And that's actually how probability really is going to play out and work, right? So there's a chance that this planet would exist. There's a chance that this universe would play out the way it did. There's probability. And there's an infinite amount of probabilities if time does not stop. If energy, right, and time do not change, you can't create or destroy those two things, then they are infinitely intertwined together. Infinitely. What blows me away more than anything is that everything has to keep moving, okay? Everything has to move. So everything has energy infinitely forever. That is the craziest part of everything. Is that, and I get it, you have Lego blocks that just are always there, but these are moving Lego blocks that never stop existing. At some point, when you see a light end, it didn't really end. That energy just went somewhere else. And that's the crazy part, is that there's probability within all of these things that are existing. Everything in the universe, everything, probability. But probability is necessary for existence to happen. If everything was the same, if there was a structure and everything was the same in that structure, it just kept being the same, there's never going to be a difference. It's forever, infinitely. But it's when you start adding a probability, chance, change, where things start to change. Things start to have an opportunity to be different. I believe the only thing that makes the higher power different from us, truly, is it has ultimate probability. Something had to pick the way everything played out. Something had to pick what genes were picked in your body. Somebody had to pick everything. At some point. A good example of how this system works out. If you've ever seen Inception, they have the point in Inception where he spins the little dreidel, the little thing, right? And he's spinning this because he's showing them, in a dream world, this will never fall. It has no need to. It's not real. Okay? And that's a great example of probability needing to exist in a real world. Somebody has to make these things happen. Somebody has to be picking when that thing falls and then what angle, and again, that's probability. That's beyond us, right? Ultimate probability. The fact that a lot of things can happen, right? And then again, something has to pick what happens at the very end. And where's the formula? Where's the information? We don't have one, but we know it happens. We know it's possible. We know that it's there. I'll also go in and even say, I believe, if we go on probability, that as long as you have one single-celled organism in existence, right, anything's possible. They're like the white-celled organisms. They are going to start programming themselves to adapt to any environment that they've been connected to. So it's almost like a seed after a fire, right? There's those seeds that don't germinate until they felt heat or something like that. They'll sit in the forest waiting for that opportunity. Well, I feel that single-celled organisms are the same thing. A planet is just a fertilized zone ready to be programmed for whatever creature is going to come its way. And so you get the single-celled organism, and it starts programming itself to adapt to whatever environment it's into, which is why you see evolution all the time programming itself to adapt to whatever environment it's been put into. But that single-celled organism is all that's necessary for population to happen. And what's even wilder is it has patch updates all the time. It's like, well, okay, we're going to try this skin color, or we're going to try this defense technique. We're going to try this poison. Each animal is kind of going through some kind of patch update all the time. And some patches are really effective, and other patches are like, whoop, we just lost half the population. Whoopsies. But again, how many times has the planet been down to what? 2% of full population? 3%? 10% of population? Whatever it may be. And even with all those factors involved, even with all that loss, as long as a single-celled organism is still here, it's going to find a way to multiply and keep going, right? And it's going to program itself into existence. We programmed ourselves into existence, essentially, right? Those single-celled organisms kept programming until they found a way to adapt to this environment. And they're still finding ways to adapt until the end. And even at the end of this planet, let's say, I don't know, something hits the planet and it blows us up. Let's say something happens and it blows up the Earth, and some asteroid or comet goes out there. And with at least one single-celled organism, it doesn't have a sex, it doesn't have shit. It's a white stem cell, and it goes out there and it finds a little inhabitable planet, and it starts to what? Program itself to that environment, because it's so basic that it pretty much can survive any element. And if it can survive any element, then it can create based on whatever abilities it has with whatever circumstances it's been provided. So that's all you need. You just need a speck. You just need a little thing and enough chance and time, and you'll get human beings and dinosaurs and all the other cool things that you've seen. Just remember that, guys. Probability is the only thing that we don't have, and it's the ultimate form of existence. 0 and 1s. Protons, electrons, and neutrons. Same thing. Take it easy, guys. Later.